We want to thank everybody for tuning in to another Deals A to Z on the topic of seller financing. I've got my co-host Jeff Brelio, and today we have Jaden Olson as our special guest. I'm excited to hear about this deal that he's talking about. So let's dive into this, Jaden. If you don't mind sharing with us, how did you find this particular seller finance transaction?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was looking for a seller finance deal for a long time. I was kind of new to real estate, just really looking. I knew that this dream, I'll say, this zero money down deal was out there waiting for me. And this wasn't a zero money down deal, but I was looking hard. I was networking with the right people, going to luncheons, and just over time, I developed relationships with some of the guys I was meeting. And I just said, hey, I got up at the beginning of the meeting. It was a luncheon in Roy. I stood up and said, hey, I'm looking for seller finance opportunities. And one guy, he said, I've got one, talk to me after the meeting. And so that was a great opportunity. I mean, investor to investor, just talking to the right people. But
do you know
that's how I found this one.
Do you know how he found the deal? Was it?
So he's owned it for 10 or 12 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
awesome. So it was one of his rentals.
Yep.
He was just looking to liquidate a rental. Well, not even liquidate, seller finance a rental.
Yeah.
He reduced inventory.
Yeah, he and his wife were headed on a LDS mission. They were leaving the country for 2 years, and he just he wanted the cash flow, just didn't want to have the management headache from across the world. So
right.
Yeah.
Very cool. So just did a luncheon.
Yeah, just did a luncheon. Yep.
I love it.
Asking the right questions. So
and another investor to investor deal, which I think we're going to see a lot of coming up in the next 4 to 6 months. Because there will be investors who have rental properties that may get into trouble with the economic downturn. So that's a great strategy is reach out and network with other investors who may be looking to get rid of a property.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it continues their cash flow.
Yep.
That's very cool. So did he suggest seller financing, or did you? Well, obviously you asked the question.
Yeah, I asked the question, and
right?
He said, "Yeah, I'm open to it." And so we started talking.
That is fantastic. Okay, so now you guys are talking. At what point do you guys start talking terms? Right there at the luncheon, or you?
No, so he gave me the address to the property. He gave me some info on rents, what he was looking for. He kind of gave me a baseline of I'd like to sell it for $525,000. If you could get me to that price, I'd be happy. So I went back. I took that information that afternoon. I analyzed the deal, and I came up with the 3 different offers that I could give him to kind of get him to that 525. It was a sixplex in Ogden. So awesome opportunity. Oh. Yeah.
And it's sixplex in Utah for under $100 or $100,000 a door. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was definitely an awesome opportunity. Rents were a little bit low, and I didn't really want to award the seller based on the low performance of the building per se. But I structured 3 different offers for him. So I started him at the $525,000 with a deal that I knew I could tackle myself, which was $10,000 down. It was essentially 2% of the purchase price. I wrote him an offer that way, and then I wrote 2 other offers. One was a $50,000 down offer because that's what he said he needed to pay taxes on. And I had to reduce the purchase price to get the numbers to work on that end. And then I wrote him a third offer that was like a 25% down payment. And obviously the purchase price was reduced further on all those. And the terms were variable. I don't even remember what they were. I could probably pull that up. But just wrote offers.
So the initial offers were purchase price and how much down?
Yeah, that's how I kind of balanced it. I mean, once I knew how much I was putting down and the return that I needed to get to justify putting that much down, I could kind of arrive at a purchase price based on my minimum standard for what I wanted on my cash-on-cash return.
Got it.
So that's kind of how I arrived at those numbers. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So did you factor in an interest rate to know what your monthly payment would be based off of rents coming in? Is that what you did?
Yep. Gotcha. So the more money that I put into the deal, the more I realized that I need to bring in investors. And if I was bringing in investors, my cash-on-cash return would have to be higher. So it was kind of a balancing act. But if I only had to bring $10,000 to the deal, I would be tackling that myself. I knew rents were low. And I actually wrote that offer based on a $0 cash flow each month.
Got
so
it.
that I just knew that if I could tackle it, I could get by at $0 a month on cash flow. It wasn't something that I needed to get an immediate return on.
Right.
So it's kind of a gamble, but
especially at 10,000 down. I mean, that's not a big down.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is that the one he accepted, was the 10,000 down?
Yeah. He actually really liked that offer. I wrote that offer as an interest-only financing with a 10-year balloon.
Okay.
So we did interest only. Payments came to – what's that?
What was the interest rate?
4.99%.
Okay.
That's awesome.
4.99%. So I'm paying him $2,139 a month on this sixplex. So.
And what are your rents?
It's kind of a unique building. There's two different buildings. One side has 3-bed, 2-bath. The other side has 2-bed, 1-bath. And so they vary a little bit. When I purchased the property, gross rents were at $3,100 for the whole apartment complex, varying from $425 to $650. I went in and remodeled just a little bit, like new bathrooms, and I did all the work myself. And now gross rents on all the ones that have gone vacant and we've remodeled a little bit, we're up to $4,450 on gross rents.
Wow.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's awesome.
Did you factor that into your initial offers and interest rates, that you knew that you could force some appreciation in the rents by doing a little bit of a model?
Absolutely. Yep. So that was kind of the gamble that I took. Like, I knew rents were low. I knew that there needed to be improvements made to the property and that I was capable of doing those myself. So as they went vacant, I would get in, renovate them, raise the rents, and then I would start collecting a profit on it.
Awesome.
Very nice. Well, did this owner own it free and clear?
Yes.
He did.
He
okay.
did.
Got it. And so in 10 years, when your balloon ends, what was, and if it's still the same, then great. But if it's changed, because I know sometimes exit strategies change after ownership. What was your original exit strategy at 10 years? And is it still the same exit strategy, or have you now changed that exit strategy?
It's a really good question. Since we've raised rents based on cap rates around Ogden, we thought about selling this year just because we have almost $250,000 of equity in the property. It's like, I mean, we're getting a return on there, but is it a high enough return to justify keeping that equity there, because the property, based on the cap rates there, it's almost worth $750,000 with what we're collecting rents at.
Wow.
That being said, I've only put maybe another $15,000, $25,000 into it in remodel. And so my cash on cash return for the amount I've got in there is fantastic. And it's just going to keep, going to keep appreciating. So right now we're just holding it, enjoying the cash flow. And I thought about refinancing because terms are great, but I just can't beat that interest-only financing for another 8 years, Yeah,
your commercial financing is probably going to be on a 15 to 20-year amortization, P&I, with a finance in 5 to 7 years.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever, who knows? That's the great.
Right now, I'm just holding it. I'll probably do a 1031 when opportunity presents itself. But for now, we're just holding it.
So, doing the math really quickly, hearing you say you've got 8 years left, you had a 10-year balloon, you've owned it for 2, I'm assuming, and you have $250,000 in equity already.
Yes, and that's based on a 6% cap rate in Ogden right now.
That's fantastic.
So,
Very cool. Very cool.
So, walk us through the documents that you did in the purchase and closing.
That I was going to have you walk us through the documents, Jeff. I pulled them up just so I could refresh myself. So he owned the property free and clear. So it's like dreamland seller financing. We did a warranty deed.
Golden nugget.
Yep, absolutely. Golden nugget. It was a trust deed note. Yep.
So just a very standard promissory note, which is a loan agreement.
Yep.
Trust deed, which is the mortgage, which is recorded on the property. The seller is the bank / lender.
Yep.
You're the borrower.
Yes, that's correct.
And the nice thing is, this does not show up on your credit report.
Absolutely. That's the best part. So it doesn't show up on my loan, like my debt to income ratios or anything like that. No credit reports or anything. So we love it.
Fantastic. So what I've gathered so far is I need to start attending more older farewells, like older couple farewells.
That's exactly right. Yeah, network with these old guys. They're at a different stage of investing than I am, and so
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they're going on their mission, and they need to.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Or they're just in retirement, so they're slowly liquidating properties, or they're tired of the maintenance and the oversight and the management. So they're looking for that cash flow, but at the same time, no work.
Exactly.
Which is being a lender, and that's seller financing.
Yep. So it's a win-win situation for sure.
Yeah. Do you know if he had any tax considerations in doing a seller finance versus an outright sale?
Yeah, that's interesting that you bring that up, because when we initially talked, he said, I got to have $50,000 down to pay my taxes on this property, because he did a cost segregation on it and he owed some taxes on it. And so I talked to you initially, Jeff, and I said, is this really a thing? And I think you said, no, have him talk to his accountant. So I made him talk to his accountant and said, I really want this to work at $10,000 down. Talk to your accountant and make sure that you need that $50,000 down. And so he talked to his accountant and he learned, I guess I can spread that out over payments for the life of the loan, and I don't have to pay that $50,000 recapture tax up front. So $10,000 down works. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, good to ask questions, and don't assume a seller needs what they actually need.
Exactly. Yeah.
They may not know. Maybe
it doesn't hurt to probe a little bit.
It does not hurt to ask a question.
Yep.
And it's about learning the right questions to ask.
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Definitely. Very cool. So assuming you utilize the 8 years right now, what are you thinking as far as that 10th year of having it? Do you think you'll sell it at that point, or do you think you will refinance, assuming you use the whole 10-year balloon?
I'm open to opportunity. And like I said, rates are low. And if we come to a place where I can start paying down some of that principal, I'm definitely looking to refinance. But long term, I'm on a 1031. If I can find another 2% down deal, I can buy 100 units with the equity you have in that thing. Yeah. Just got to keep finding that seller finance 2% down deal. So,
Fantastic.
1031. That's the golden egg.
Yeah, that sounds like a prime opportunity for a 1031, because you can get up into now a 12 or 18 unit building
conventionally, with commercial financing.
Yeah, quite easily.
Yep.
So, that's a great extra strategy.
Gosh, no kidding. Did he have any other investments that you guys talked about, or was this his only one?
So he did have a couple of others, but he had some family that was going to take over managing those ones. This is the only one that he wanted to sell or finance right now. I probably ought to hit him up again, though, because he's getting home from his mission.
I was going to tell you to do that.
Yeah, just to see, hey, how's this working?
Yoshi's picked up deals years after talking to the sellers, and they originally said no, or for some reason, it took a pass or something like that.
Yeah. So 4 years later, we were able to close the deal.
That's awesome.
Staying in touch with the guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about, again, some structuring. You did a note and deed.
Yep.
Did you roll in taxes and insurance into your note, like in escrows, like on a conventional mortgage, or was your seller okay with you paying those directly?
No, we pay that so actually taxes go to the escrow company. We pay insurance out of pocket every month. And so we used escrow specialists, local company, set that up so that I pay escrow specialist every month, and then escrow specialist pays the seller every month.
Pays the seller on their note, and then collects escrows for the taxes to be paid eventually in November.
Yep.
You pay insurance when it comes around to do. And the reason I bring that up is a lot of investors and sellers don't really, they forget about the taxes and insurance part. Like they know what interest rates are, they know what terms are, but then they forget about, the taxes and insurance. Right. Conventional lenders almost always require escrows, because if you fail to pay taxes, the county can take the house back and it actually jumps into first position. So a lender can get wiped out if the borrower, property owner, doesn't pay the property taxes.
Gotcha.
And if you don't pay insurance and the house burns down and there's no insurance on the property, the seller's just lost his collateral, just burned down.
Yep.
So a lot of sellers, it's a negotiating point. and you can roll in escrows for taxes and insurance just like a conventional mortgage, and have an escrow company process that. I would not do that directly with the seller. I wouldn't have like the seller responsible, because they could force money and then steal it.
Right.
You could use an escrow company to kind of process all of that, make those payments.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the $10 a month or whatever we each pay them. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So Jeff, just actually, as you were saying that, I just thought of, okay, let's say Jaden didn't have insurance. The house burns down. The sixplex burns down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's like, well, I don't have income, Mr. Seller on your mission. I can't pay you anymore. What kind of happens there from a legal standpoint, other than it gets really messy?
Jaden would go into default on the note with the seller. The seller has the rights of foreclosure. And the seller could foreclose and take the property back, but he's taking a property back at less than what is owed on the note.
Right.
Sure. So it could be a matter of how badly the house burns down and how much work it needs. And so that essentially, the seller is going to be screwed in that one. And banks know that. Conventional banks know that. That's why if you don't pay your insurance, the bank is going to buy insurance for you. That's 4 to 5 times the normal rate.
Yeah.
Wow.
And if you don't pay taxes, the bank could step in and pay your taxes and charge you interest on that. So because they understand that if those things, two things aren't done, they're in a super weak position. So we absolutely recommend, making sure that's written in the note, that it's going to be paid and then processed through an escrow company to make sure that it actually happens.
And the reason I ask that is, like, from the lender standpoint, the seller standpoint, would it be a good idea, I guess, as the listeners hear this later, and you are the seller on a seller finance transaction, would it be a good idea to get your own insurance as well? Even though Jaden has one, but you don't know if he ever stops making that payment, you've got a backup? Or does it make sense because you're not the owner anymore?
Here's what I would do. I would write it into the note and deed, and this will be slightly different if there's an underlying mortgage already. So that's a different conversation. But this is owned free and clear. So this is just a traditional mortgage on a property. It just happens to be that the seller's the bank. I would require the insurance paid by the borrower. Require it to be escrowed in, and the escrow company makes the payments. You can, when you do this and you set up with the insurance company, you name the lender as an insured on the policy. So if the policy lapses and doesn't get paid, the insurance company will send a notice to the lender as an insured saying, hey, this policy's not been paid. There's no insurance on the property. And at that point, if I were the seller / lender, I would absolutely jump in and get my purchase insurance on that property, and then charge my borrower for it. Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And those terms can be written into the note and deed. They're pretty standard in most notes and deeds. To be honest, most notes and deeds will have that. If an attorney drafts it, they will absolutely be in it. If you have your title company draft the note, I've never been a big fan of that. They may not be good enough for that, but those are pretty standard terms.
Got it.
Yeah, that's real estate lending 101, taxes and insurance.
Gotcha. Jaden, did your seller have an attorney? You obviously had Jeff on your side. Did he have one?
Yeah. Yep.
He did. Okay.
Yeah, happened to be Jeff. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I got my finger in too many pies.
Yeah. That's what happens when you're working in small investor circles. Everybody has the same attorney, but I mean, it's all good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And my notes and deeds are very pro lender, because that's who mostly the lenders. And this is an interesting topic right now is, generally the lenders create their own notes and deeds, right? Banks do. Mm-hmm. But in our little world of real estate, and seller financing and the educated party is usually the investor buyer, not the seller, right? So sellers aren't going to know what a note and deed is. They're not going to have access to an attorney. They're not going to know what a mortgage is or what the term should be. And so it's the investors who kind of jump in and start dictating the terms of the loan, which could be very contrary to what protects the lender. So I always recommend lenders should work with their own attorney and at least review the loan documents before closing. And that way, because if there's some terms in there that aren't really good for the lender, and down the road, you're going to avoid problems if the lender really understood the note and the terms and what they were getting. Because if they don't, they will hire a lawyer at that point.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Going back to the property now again, Jaden, has there been any complications in this seller finance transaction, that you wouldn't normally have if you got traditional financing?
None that I can think of. Escrow specialist's been really good. Everything's been smooth that way. We set it all up so that we have a bank account that all the rents get deposited in every month, and escrow specialist just takes everything. I mean, from a financing position, it's awesome. I don't have any complaints that way.
Right. And there's no underlying mortgage, which adds a complication.
Yeah. Yep. So it's been super simple. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, it'd probably be even more simple than a traditional mortgage.
Yeah,
because you're actually talking to the lender himself if you needed to talk to the guy versus calling the bank, and you're just talking to customer service at that point.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that the biggest complication for me was that this was my first big real estate investment. And I say big, $10,000 isn't big, but a sixplex is big, right?
Yeah.
But taking on a lot of liability, like during the due diligence period, we tested positive for meth, and we needed to do some remediation. And that was a scary thing for me. So I went back to the seller, tried to negotiate a lower price. He's like, no. And he had every right to do that because he was giving me a screaming deal on seller finance. And just a leap of faith to go ahead and say,
remediation isn't that bad.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't realize that as a green investor, but we took care of it.
Yeah.
Put
a little great negotiating tool. If your seller doesn't understand that it's not a big deal.
Right. Yeah.
It's worth asking. It's always worth, at least asking.
Yeah, for sure.
So, you never know.
At the end of the day, you picked up a sixplex, and I'm just going to keep repeating this. You picked up a sixplex for $10,000.
Yeah, I know, right? And I almost
just sit on it.
What kills me is that, like, looking back a year and a half, almost 2 years later, that I almost wholesaled that deal because it tested positive for meth. So I almost shorted myself. I had somebody who was willing to pay me another $10,000, and I thought that was awesome, but I ended up talking myself out of it. Thank goodness.
No kidding.
And if you called me, I would have talked you out of that.
Yeah.
And what's so cool is it's not just a sixplex for $10,000 down, but at the value, right? You could go to Oklahoma and get a sixplex probably for $10,000 down at like $150,000.
Yeah.
But in Utah, where values are higher, I mean, we're not Los Angeles, of course, but that's what's amazing is an asset at $525,000. You only needed to leverage $10,000 to get it.
That's right. Yep.
That's
amazing. And miracles of seller financing.
Yeah,
I love it.
So do you know what you would have had to put down if you did a conventional non-owner occupied loan? Do you know that?
nearly it would have been $120,000.
That's right.
That doesn't, absolutely. Yep. Doesn't include the financing costs and everything else associated with that.
Gosh, no kidding.
And I'm guessing you probably had a bit of an easier time discussing seller financing terms because the seller was an investor.
Yeah, he was definitely familiar with it. Yeah. But I will say, like, since then, I have been a little bit spoiled. Like, sixplex for $10,000. I've got my sights set high on my next big investment. But one thing that I keep going back to when I'm looking for these is that the best way to have these conversations with potential sellers is face-to-face. So, we talked one day. I took him out to lunch the next Friday. We talked about it some more. And then I took him out to lunch 2 other times as we negotiated the contract and everything. And even while we were under contract, I took him to lunch. So I spent $150 in lunch taking this guy to lunch, and he was very patient with me, thank goodness. But those face-to-face conversations, when you can actually build a relationship and build rapport with people, that's when you really get these deals closed, in my experience.
Yeah, and that's one of the hurdles of seller financing is convincing the seller that this is a good transaction.
Right.
Can result in tax benefits, more money than even the purchase price as they're collecting interest. They're getting cash flow. There's just a ton of benefits.
Or even selling it above what current market value is. Because if you were to list that
the
on
borrower
the MLS,
saving money.
Yeah, absolutely. If you were to list that on the MLS, that he wouldn't have sold it at the cap rate he sold it to me. I think I bought it at like a 5 cap in Ogden, which is really low cap rate for that area for the asset and what it was performing at. But yeah, he wouldn't have sold that, I don't think, on the MLS for $525,000.
No, not at all.
Yep.
Very cool. Any tips that through this experience from the luncheon that you first met the guy to today that you've learned that you could share with our listeners?
Those deals are out there. I mean, that's the biggest tip that I can give anybody is just hope and talk to people, network with people. And since then, I never submit an offer without at least one creative finance or seller finance option, just to say, hey, this is the deal. I would love to finance it. I can get you this much higher purchase price if you're willing to work on terms. So any offer that I write, I always try to negotiate terms. But yeah, I think, yeah, just go for it. It never hurts to ask, really.
Never hurts to ask. Perfect.
I love it. That's a phenomenal story. I really love it.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Well, Jaden, thank you for sharing your experience with us. That's an amazing deal. I'm glad our listeners are going to get an opportunity to see that that can be done. This was your first seller financing deal,
yes.
Right? And 10,000 down, 6plex, going smoothly, and you now have $250,000 in equity and great cash flow and tax benefits and depreciation, and holy cow.
Yeah, I should expound on that a little bit. We were able to depreciate $166,000 the first year we bought that property, which was awesome. So, yeah, it's absolutely awesome.
Literally paying you to own it.
I know it is. I know it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's the best part.
Do you manage it yourself, Jaden, or do you have a property
No,
manager?
I have a property manager that manages it. And because I was so tight on cash flow at the beginning, I wanted to hire that part out, but I still do a lot of the work, so I don't get the $60 send electrician over to flip a breaker kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But now that we're cash flowing well, I do assign a lot of that stuff back to the property manager, but I still look at the work orders. So
very cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. Well, that was amazing. Thank you so much
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
No, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you. That was a phenomenal story, and one that's very recent. You know, you hear these amazing stories and you think, yeah, that happened like in the 90s, right? Like that doesn't happen today.
They're still out there. They're still out there.
Perfect. Love it. Wonderful. Well, thank you for everybody who's joined us today on the podcast, who's listening. This is Yoshi Shiraki, Jeff Bralio, Jaden Olson. Jaden, again, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.